Imagine a smooth gradient that represents the many ways our minds work, a flowing blend rather than a strict either slash or division. In everyday life, people are often labeled as either neurotypical, meaning their development follows what most cultures consider standard, or neurodiverse, meaning their brains work in ways that differ from typical expectations. This conventional split, however, oversimplifies a far more interesting reality. Instead of a hard line, think of our minds arranged along a continuum where traits mix and change. Today we explore foundational ideas about this spectrum, using everyday language designed to be easy to grasp. We will look at how characteristics like sensory processing, social interaction, and attention are not locked into fixed categories, but are constantly adjusting with our surroundings and experiences. Whether someone finds comfort in a familiar routine or occasionally struggles with shifting focus, these are just parts of the never-ending blend that makes up each of us. Our goal is to introduce the idea that no one is exclusively one thing or the other. Even if you're new to this subject, you'll soon see that our minds are as varied and dynamic as the colors on an artist's palette, changing with every moment and circumstance. When we picture this mental spectrum, it helps to imagine a multidimensional space rather than a simple straight line. Each axis in this space represents a different aspect of our behavior and experience. One axis reflects sensory sensitivity. Some people feel the brightness of a room or the hum of conversation more intensely, while others remain relatively unaffected by such stimuli. Another axis represents social cognition, where some folks naturally pick up on subtle emotional cues and others lean towards a more logical, step-by-step understanding of social interactions. Communication style forms yet another dimension. Some prefer to speak directly, while others express themselves through gestures, tone, or even silence. There is also an axis that covers executive function, which involves how we plan and organize our tasks, ranging from a neat, orderly approach to a more creative, jumble of ideas style. Attention regulation stands as another key factor, showing a spectrum from intense concentration to a more diffuse attention that flits between many thoughts. Finally, emotional regulation provides yet another perspective. Some people exhibit steady responses to life's ups and downs, while others experience rapid changes in mood. Combining these axes gives us a picture of a dynamic, shifting landscape. No one remains fixed at a single point in this space. Instead, our positions move and change over time, much like colors blending on a palette. This view helps us appreciate that our minds are complex, with overlapping traits that express themselves differently in each moment. It is common to find that traits traditionally associated with neurodiverse profiles appear in people who are often labeled as neurotypical. For instance, someone might generally follow expected norms, but still experience moments of distraction or a deep attachment to routines, qualities often seen in neurodiverse individuals. At the same time, people who have been diagnosed with conditions like ADHD or autism sometimes adopt behaviors that make them seem quite typical in specific settings. This blending of characteristics results in what might be termed a neuro haze, where the edges of each category blur and mix together. Labels can serve as helpful guides, yet they often fall short in capturing the full picture of our unique minds. Instead of thinking in absolutes, it is much more accurate to acknowledge that we all display a mix of tendencies. One moment, a person might be highly organized and methodical, and the next, they might embrace spontaneity and creativity. Recognizing these overlapping traits challenges the idea that our brains are locked into fixed patterns. It also invites us to understand that every person's experience is a blend of strengths and challenges. By accepting that the boundaries between typical and diverse are not rigid but rather fluid, we open the door to more flexible and compassionate ways of viewing ourselves and others. Our behavior is not simply one or the other. It is an ever-changing combination of experiences and adaptations. A fundamental aspect of this gradient is that where we fall on it can change dramatically depending on our environment. Our behavior is not solely determined by our internal wiring. It also reacts to the world around us. Consider someone with a heightened sensitivity to sound or light. In a calm, controlled setting, they might feel completely at ease. Yet in a bustling, noisy environment, the same individual could feel overwhelmed and out of sorts. Similarly, a person with attention differences might thrive in a creative, open environment where ideas flow freely, but struggle in a rigid, highly structured setting. Every context, from a quiet room to a lively gathering, plays a role in how our traits manifest. This means that the same person might appear more typical in one situation and more diverse in another. For example, a creative project might bring out highly focused energy, while a crowded social event could lead to distraction or stress. The interaction of our inner characteristics with external factors creates a shifting mosaic of behaviors. It reminds us that our identity is not static. Rather, it is continually influenced by our surroundings. Recognizing this context, dependence encourages us to be more understanding of the fluctuations in our own behavior and that of others. It also helps to explain why someone might excel in one environment while facing difficulties in another. In essence, our lives are filled with moments where the interplay between our mental makeup and the world we navigate becomes beautifully evident, underscoring the dynamic nature of the gradient. Culture plays a significant role in shaping how we define what is typical and what is diverse. The traits that one society views as normal may be seen as unusual in another, and vice versa. For example, a child who is naturally imaginative and dreamy may be celebrated as a creative force in one cultural setting, while being viewed as inattentive in a more rigid educational system. The labels we use are not only reflections of scientific observation, but are also deeply influenced by cultural values, traditions, and norms. Language, too, is molded by the cultural context in which it is used, affecting how we describe and interpret various behaviors. By recognizing that our definitions evolve with cultural shifts, we come to understand that brain differences are not strictly biological, they are also social constructs. This perspective encourages a more inclusive view by highlighting that what is perceived as a challenge in one context might well be a strength in another. As cultures interact and evolve, so too do our ideas about what traits are desirable, acceptable, or even celebrated. Embracing this cultural shaping of the mind broadens our understanding, reminding us that every viewpoint contributes to the rich tapestry of human experience, and that diversity is something to be respected rather than rigidly categorized. Viewing neurodiversity as a fluid gradient offers a powerful, empowering way to see ourselves and others. Instead of boxing people into strict labels, this approach celebrates the rich mix of qualities that each individual embodies. When we understand that our cognitive traits exist on a spectrum, it becomes easier to appreciate the strengths that come with every variation. A person can be both wonderfully creative and impressively logical, or be empathetic while also excelling in problem solving. This understanding frees us from the pressure of fitting into predefined categories and opens up a world where personalized support and encouragement become more natural. It also supports environments in schools, workplaces, and communities that are flexible and considerate of different ways of thinking. Recognizing that our abilities and challenges can blend and shift over time encourages self-compassion and a kinder judgment of others. The gradient view fosters a sense of belonging where every trait is seen as a part of a larger, dynamic picture. Instead of focusing on what might be labeled as deficits, we come to celebrate the entire spectrum of human ability. This empowering perspective calls on us to design spaces that honor our full range of experiences. Every individual's unique blend contributes to a vibrant, diverse community where differences are not only accepted but cherished. Imagine our minds as colors on a palette, where neurotypical is represented by a cool blue and neurodiverse by a striking red. In most cases, people are not purely blue or red. They are shades of purple, blends that change with the light and the lens through which we view them. This simple metaphor of a color wheel captures the essence of our discussion. Every individual is a continuously shifting mixture of qualities, influenced by context, culture, and personal experience. Just as the perfect shade of purple might look different in soft daylight versus bright neon, our traits can seem to change depending on the environment. By thinking of ourselves in this way, we acknowledge that there is no fixed point that defines us completely. Our behaviors, strengths, and challenges merge in unique ways, making each mind a work of art in its own right. This approach encourages us to celebrate diversity as a natural and beautiful aspect of being human. As you reflect on this journey through the spectrum of minds, remember that every person carries their own set of colors. It is in the blending of these hues that we find richness, depth, and ultimately, a more inclusive way of understanding what it means to be.